Well, good afternoon, YouTubers, patriots, anybody who voted for Trump this time around, any of you independent voters like myself who are leaning towards Trump. I know my camera's a little shaky. I do apologize about that. I left my tripod at work the other night when I was doing the overnight shift, and sometimes on the overnights, if I have a little downtime, I'll work on a YouTube video. So you can just picture this. I've got a makeshift tripod. It's a stack of Tupperware turned upside down. And on top of that, I've got a jar of whey protein. And on top of that, that's where I got my phone sitting. And it's resting next to a glass jar. You want to talk about American ingenuity? This is what we do when we can't find one way to make things work. We always find another, right? That's what we do as Americans. But I've got some great news to report to you. And that is that Trump has not gone down without a fight. And he is planning these, hopefully they'll be bigger than ever rallies. I think it's going to be called something like the best is yet to come post-election rallies. So tell your friends about it. I want everybody to go out there and attend this because, or these events, because I think it's important that D.C. knows, that the Democrat machine knows, all these elitists who look down on us, on middle America, know that we're still here and we're not going to go down without a fight. And we're not going to let them take our country hostage. Period. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're the Day Jones law firm in D.C., if you're a Republican or a Democrat. And please tell me something. Why do you need to have an R or D behind your name? Here's an idea. Why don't you have the guts to come out and say, yes, I'm a Democrat, and I believe in socialism, and I'm an SJW, and I believe in communism, and vote for me. Now, one or two things are going to happen. Either people are going to support you and vote for you, or people are going to reject you. Same thing with Republicans. I'm not just picking on one party here. Why can't you Republicans drop the R behind your name and say, yes, I'm proud to be a conservative, and I'm not going to back down from that. And if you want to think I'm extremist for that, well, fine. But these are the things that I believe in, and if you believe in the same things, then vote for me. Once again, people will either vote for you and follow you, or they'll reject you. You see, I think the problem with the crowd, the elite crowd in D.C., is that they can't deal with rejection. They live in this little bubble. They don't live where you and I live. They don't work 9 to 5. They're not here, or out here rather, earning a paycheck like we are. So I don't want any of you who may have voted for Trump, whether you were a Republican or Democrat who voted for Trump, because the truth is, there are a lot of people that voted for Trump across the board, across different races, different philosophies. But we all have one thing in common, don't we? And that is that we love this country, and we don't want to see anything that's going to destroy that. And we're not going to allow the D.C. elite to destroy it. And they want to get rid of Trump. I say kick out D.C. Absolutely. I think it's time that we stand up, like I said, attend these riots, or riots, not riots, but rallies. Maybe we should have a riot. What do you think? Maybe we should have a patriot riot, huh? We don't burn down the city. We don't say death to the cops. We don't say pigs in a blanket and fry them up like bacon. But we go out there and we say we love this country and we're not ashamed to admit it, and we're not going to let you stand in our way. But I'm hoping that you people go out there and you attend these post-election rallies for Trump in larger numbers than we had during the campaign. And tell these people in D.C. who's boss. It ain't them. And why do we need D.C. anyways? Now, we need our Constitution. We need our Bill of Rights, Declaration of Independence. We need an area or a location where government officials can meet. That is true. But I don't think that we need, quote-unquote, D.C. as its own entity. I don't think we need it. I think that we just need to kick D.C. out and say, to hell with you people, we don't need you. We'll make this country work without you. And did you see what Biden's planning to do here? Oh, I got to talk about Fox News in a minute. And all these incidences, which I mentioned in a previous video, about this alleged voter fraud. And some of it's pretty damning, folks. But did you hear what Joe Biden's going to do? He's going to unravel the Trump agenda. be part of the WHO or the part of the Paris Accords again, or whatever you call that. I can't keep up, okay, folks? I just can't keep up. I worry about getting up, going to work, earning a paycheck, paying my rent, putting food on the table. I care about my country, but I could care less about what happens around the rest of the world. Is that cruel? Now, I have sympathy for my fellow man. I really do. And I'm willing to help somebody out in need. Okay, we should all be like that. But there's an old saying, be more concerned about what's happening in your own backyard. Take care of your own affairs. Well, that's not what's going on in D.C. In Fox News, this happened yesterday, Neil Cavuto show. Well, I'll tell you what, the pronunciation isn't just coming out today. I have this, I have to admit, I have this problem with YouTube videos. I don't know if it's because I've got way too many ideas to put out there, or I just don't know what to say. I kind of don't go by a script. Okay, I kind of have a guideline of things I want to follow when I do these YouTube videos. But a lot of it is just on the fly and from my heart because I want to be real with you guys. I mean, I don't want to come here and say like, my name is such and da-da-da-da-da-da-da, and go through A, B, and C. I mean, that's boring. That's boring. A little spontaneity kind of makes these videos a little more interesting, gives them more flavor, don't you think? So I got to give a shout out to Salty Cracker and his channel. Given a shout out to him before. But he posted something, I think a few hours ago, or maybe when I got it, it was a little bit later. But he was talking about what happened yesterday during this pressure, which not a lot of networks covered. But Kayleigh McEnany, she took it to the media. She took it to these Democrats big time. And when she started hitting home, or rather when she started hitting a home run, Neil Cavuto bailed out. He bailed out. He said, "Oh, these are pretty strong accusations," or something to that effect, that she's making. I'm sorry, in good conscience, I can no longer go with this press conference. Mr. Cavuto, it's not a matter of your good conscience. It's called good journalism. Okay, because the truth doesn't care about your conscience. Doesn't care about, well, somebody, a very popular media figure who's kind of in our neck of the woods has said this, facts don't care about your feelings. And it's true. Because the facts are the facts. Your job as a journalist is to report what happens. Okay, not what you feel what happened, not what you think's going to happen, not how you think things should turn out, but your job is to report what happens as it happens. Now, here are some of the allegations of voter fraud. Now, some of these are well known. I may have put them in a previous video, but I'm going to go over some of these again if they were in that previous video, and some that may not be. So this is according to Deadline Detroit. 130,000 ballots arrived at 4 a.m. at the TCF Center in Detroit, all for Biden. 130,000. They said a Chrysler 300 showed up and a Ferrari. And the polls closed. That was at 4 a.m. Wednesday morning. Okay? 4 a.m. Wednesday morning of last week. And the polls actually closed election night at 8 p.m. at the TFC Center. Then we have video clips, you can find them here on YouTube, of them putting cardboard on the windows there at the TFC Center. In Philadelphia, you had poll workers who were denied access to observe the count after the judge ordered them to be allowed to do so. And they were even threatened with arrest. And they were even required, those who did make it, and were required to stand 20 feet or so away. So they really couldn't get a good bird's eye view, if you will, of the count. In Nevada, now this is being disputed, but in Nevada, 3,026 people voted who no longer live in that state. And that could be as high as 10,000. This according to PolitiFact and Forbes. So once again, that's being disputed. But the fact remains, this is starting to come out, and more people are willing to come out of work. And I encourage you, if you're somebody out there, and I'm not talking about you wanting to make up some BS story because you want to get 15 minutes of fame. I'm not talking about that. If you have legitimate reason to believe, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that something was not on the up and up during this election and you witnessed it, let's say you were a poll worker, what have you, then please leave comments below. Come out. I'll be on your side. I will be on your side. To hell with the media. To hell with the D.C. elite. I'm sorry, D.C. You don't get to decide what the United States agenda is. We, the American people, do, because you work for us. Period. End of story. You work for us, the American people. That is how the founders wanted it, because they didn't want a tyrant. They didn't want a king having his thumb on the people, because they understood the corruption that can happen with the king. And we're starting to see the corruption that happens with this two-party system, and especially with one particular party. Now, okay, just to be fair here, Republicans have been just as guilty of some other tricks. But what we're seeing coming out now, I think, is a real eye-opener. And the Democrats, you guys need to fess up. Just come out and say, okay, yes, we did this because we don't like Trump, we want him out. Just come out and say you want Trump out. Just like this morning when they had, or they're still having this stupid hearing in D.C. over what happened with the Russia collusion story, which none of it was true. And this McCabe character, head of the FBI, did you see this? He said, well, if I knew now what I knew then, one of those old tricks, he would have not pursued Carter Page or what have you. Something to do with the FISA. Well, the FISA warrant, or the dossier that was used to get the FISA warrant, was never verified. None of the sources or the information in the dossier was ever verified. It was all phony, fake baloney. If I took a look at that dossier myself, I could point out within 2 seconds what is fake and what is real. I could, just by looking at the language of it and seeing what anecdotes or stories are in there. I could tell you in a heartbeat that this is full of BS. It's called your intuition. It's called using common sense. But they don't do that in Washington, D.C. It's how we can get the next guy. Let's do it at the taxpayer's expense. No, you people in D.C., you care more about getting voted in the next election, being invited to the next presser, or being invited to the next steak and shrimp dinner. That's what you really care about. You could care less about me or anybody else out there. You just want to live in your little D.C. elite bubble, and to hell with the rest of the country, right? As you live high off the hog at our expense. So I believe Alaska and Georgia are still counting the votes. And I can't remember if North Carolina is or not. There's also video clips of poll workers not properly filing or they say segregating these different votes. I don't like using that word segregation or segregating the vote. But separating these votes. Okay, so they've got video clips of that. You can find that here on YouTube. And like I said, during Neil Cavuto's show yesterday, trying to bail out of this presser, and I see that the ratings for Fox News are starting to drop. Fox, step up to the plate. Be the big guys in this, okay? Get behind Trump, because we're behind Trump. I don't think Trump's going to go down without a fight. And I hope he fights this tooth and nail to the end. And Mr. Joe Biden, President Biden, I know this is hard for you to understand because you've been stuck in your basement. But we have moved past this shock of having a pandemic in this country. Is this something for us to take seriously? Well, yes, just as cold and flu season are something to take seriously. Well, you take the necessary precautions. But remember, back in 1920, we had Spanish flu. We're still here, right? Now, there are a lot of people that died from Spanish flu. It was bad. And then we have this pandemic. I think I know exactly what happened with this. They saw an opportunity. These people who wanted to get Trump out, they couldn't do it with the Russia collusion scandal. So they used COVID-19 by probably allowing somebody in the country, maybe I'm sounding conspiratorial here, but I think that somebody allowed whoever it was who carried this COVID-19 disease into the country and allowed this thing to spread and tried to use this as a political tool against Trump. And here Trump is doing the right thing by stopping flights into the country to lower the spread of the disease, encouraging people to get out there and wash their hands, to be cautious. I think Trump handled this perfectly. He didn't do anything wrong. You see, Trump comes from the business world, comes from the outside world. He doesn't come from D.C. He knows how to handle a crisis. You people in D.C. don't. And most of us, we're still back to work. Now, we may have some of our hours reduced. I've had that happen to me, or I had that happen to me this week. But for the most part, we've learned to get back to normal. We've learned how to adapt. That's something that D.C. does not know how to do. It does not know how to adapt to change. And they're looking at their savior, Obama or Biden. I really feel bad for you people in D.C. I really do. And now it's also coming out, because I heard it today on Rush Limbaugh's show, and Mark Stein was the guest host today. Shout out to Mark Stein. He's just a fantastic fill-in for Rush Limbaugh. He really is. And I would love to pick his brain. I mean, he can be pretty funny too. It's some of the things he says. So, but he was talking about how, I think it's the Day Jones law firm in D.C., one of the most powerful law firm in D.C. You have these attorneys that are leaking stuff to the New York Times now, where they're complaining about this case they have to take with Trump because they don't think it has legs to it. Well, that would be like me saying at work, I don't like the guests that we have in X amount of rooms. So guess what? I'm going to leak some information to the local paper about what's going on with the hotel and how much of a jerk this guy is. You don't do that. Okay? If you didn't want to take the case, all you had to say to Trump was no. But no. See, this is another avenue to go ahead and dig at Trump. You dig at Trump, you're digging at the American people. That's what you're trying to do. Because to you people, we don't matter. Obviously, we don't matter. Obviously, our vote didn't matter. And if we got people that are manipulating votes or using the names of dead people on voter rolls or covering up the windows at some polling place in D.C. Or in Detroit, not D.C., but in Detroit, I'm sure they've probably been doing that in D.C. too. But if we got that going on, it's no different than living in a banana republic. So I thought I'd come here and be someone to give you some encouragement, someone to be a voice of reason in this time of chaos right now. I know things are really tight out there, but all you patriots out there, whether you're a Republican or Democrat, you voted for Trump, or maybe if you weren't voting for Trump and you don't like what you're seeing with what happened during this election, the way that things got played out, that there's some corruption going on here or some chicanery, seems to be a word that people are using now, then you need to unite with those who supported Trump during the campaign. And you say, no, this isn't right. We may not agree with you politically, but we're going to stand beside you because you're an American, a fellow American. And every American's vote counts, whether they're Republican, Democrat, independent like myself. So I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please click that like button, subscribe, hit me up on Instagram at #JasonComposes, leave comments below. And now you can reach me at Voice of the Composer at Twitter. This is Voice of the Composer at Twitter saying peace out. Stay safe, everybody. I'll catch you next time. And go out there and support these best is yet to come rallies, Trump's post-election rallies. I want to see mega crowds. I'm talking mega crowds. Have a good day, everybody.